Men, what are some green flags on a first date? Story 1. We accidentally showed up at the wrong restaurant. Well, I showed up at one on the north end of town. She was at the one on the south end. She ended up coming to meet me halfway, and after dinner, we talked at a park at a lake until 2 in the morning, and it felt like no time had passed. She wasn't on her phone at all. I told her I don't kiss on the first date just to make sure it's not about a hookup. Then she gave me a hug and even texted me to see if I got home, as she ended up making it to her place before I got to mine. Anyway, we've been married for 8 years now. Story 2. My adult daughter went on a first date with this guy she met on a dating app. We were worried sick, making sure she texted us her location every time she went somewhere else. She got very sick on the date, and he took her to the ER, waiting with her for almost 6 hours. When she went back, he wasn't allowed to go with her, so he instead went and got her Waffle House since they had missed dinner. She still wasn't out after 6 hours. So he sat in his car with the heat on during Georgia summer, so her food stayed hot. When she finally got out, he drove her home with her food because he wanted to make sure she got some rest since she was sick. They made plans to go on another date when she got to feeling better. They got married 3 months ago. We love him, and I officiated the ceremony. Story 3. If you pay for the meal, or anything, she says thank you and is genuinely appreciative. A shocking amount of women won't even say thank you when you pay for stuff on a date. Bonus points if she offers to split the check, or I don't know, if you bought the movie tickets, she gets the popcorn, etc. Example. My now wife offered to split our first meal. I declined and paid. She thanked me. Then when we got a drink at the bar after, she said, let me get this round. Knew she was a keeper. Story 4. When she brings the 1977 to 2011 flag of Libya to the first date. Big green flag. Old Canadian flag from the 50s though, that's a red flag. Story 5. My wife, whom I've been with for 8 years, and I had an incredibly awkward first date for the first hour. There was physical attraction, but we're both awkward and shy. Conversation was so stale and forced that I texted a friend. It wasn't going well and we could meet in an hour. Until, for whatever reason, she asked me if I had a zombie apocalypse plan, and I did. So we nerded out together over that, and other topics flowed in more naturally. We talked for 4 more hours and walked from South Keys to Rideau Center in Ottawa. Walking that entire 4 hours. One good shared topic can start something amazing. Story 6. She compliments you and how you look. I compliment my man all the time, but it's really men that need to compliment each other more. Most of the genuine compliments I get are from other women. I explained this to my man once, and he started complimenting his friends, and over time they all started complimenting each other. Yes, you deserve more compliments, but you also have to give more compliments to other guys as well. Story 7. Listening and reciprocating questions. I don't want to talk about myself the whole time, but this isn't a job interview where I'm the employer. Ask questions about me. Haha. Also, good manners go a long way. Story 8. Conversation flows easily and naturally. You're able to talk about the big things like religion, politics, and children without feeling like it's a potential argument. You're both laughing and relaxed the entire time, and you leave the date itching for the next one. I'm in this with someone really special right now, and I'm such a quirky, eccentric person. And the fact that I can just be myself around her has me feeling like it's so safe to fall in love. Pray for me, bros. This one is really special, and I've never felt this before. I really hope I don't fuck it up. Story 9. You don't realize hours have passed sitting and chatting wherever. You sit in your car at the end of the night and talk for another hour, and realize even after one date, you genuinely miss their company. I knew my wife was the one when we made plans to watch Arrested Development at her house, but when I got there, we just talked for 3 hours straight. I can count on one hand the number of people I can talk to for 3 hours straight, with no pauses and no, OMG, is this almost over? Story 10. My first date with the person I ended up marrying went like this. We met online, got to know each other a little, then agreed to meet after a while at a bar they were familiar with. We sat, talked, had a few drinks, had some bar food, and got along like we had known each other for years. After the bar closed, we sat in their car. It was winter time for another couple of hours and just BS'd with each other. I knew then I might have found someone special. Story 11. My wife and I aren't drinkers. Our first date consisted of us walking around a park for hours, talking easily about who we were. We left, and I definitely wanted something romantic with her. She wanted to go on another hike with me, and it took until the third date when she thought of me in romantic terms. The emphasis is conversation. Sex at the very most can only really take up an average of 30 minutes a day. Find someone you can talk to in life. It'll go better. Story 12. Looking back, the thing that should have been the biggest green flag about the woman I married was that she made just as much effort to see me as I did to see her. She texted me first, suggested hangout times, and came up with date ideas just as often as I did. I don't think I realized it back then, but I realize it now. When we were first dating, my wife was in law school, an hour and a half drive from her house. One night a week, she would come to my house. She was temporarily living with her parents while she went back to school as a single parent. Have date night, stay over, and get up at 4:30 a.m. to drive back. That was 10 years ago, and she still always makes me feel appreciated at that kind of level. I try to up my game and respond back at that level. And I tell her that my goal in life is that she never realizes that I'm the one that got the better end of the deal when we got married. Story 13. After the date's over, you feel like that person could be your friend, and that's all good, just keeping it natural with zero pressure. For real though, I don't know about y'all, but there comes a time when passion starts simmering, real slow, and all them old prejudices and expectations, like 10,000 things men need to know about women, or how to drive her wild in bed, or whatever. They all turn into straight up crap. I remember Peter Hanke said in an interview that he hopes to get old and have his passions, impatience, and carnal desperation fade away. But why wait until you're old to keep it sensible? Ain't no better green flag than that, my friend. Story 14. They listen and are actually interested in things you have to say. They talk too, obviously, and don't expect you to entertain them, but rather have a nice conversation back and forth. No obvious expectations on food/drink/pay whatever you're doing. For me, it's a big green flag when they are adamant on separate checks for the first date, because it means they are serious and not just out for a free meal, no matter how the date goes. Honesty about intentions is a really big green flag too for me. Knowing if someone is possibly in for something serious with only you, or dating around a bit to find themselves and potentially eventually a nice partner, helps in setting expectations on both parts, and you might even find yourselves great friends instead, even if things don't click. For more quick green flags for what I find myself falling for in a date, like I did with my wife, I'd say instant attraction. It's important for both parties in a sexual relationship. Can't have a long-term romantic relationship without attraction, unless you're asexual, OFCC, having fun together. My wife is also my best friend. I still love hanging out with her after 8 years together. Intellectually compatible, equally smart, or in our case, equally stupid. We understand each other well, both in language and references. We argue and discuss things from similar points of understanding even when we disagree. To us, it's the cornerstone of our relationship, because even when we get into fights, we can take a step back and reason to a point of understanding. We might still not agree, but at least we understand why. Similar core beliefs, things like religion, how we look at people, how we consider kids, war, death, revenge, the meaning of life, money, career, family, etc. The big questions that shape how we go through life, they kind of need to be aligned for a long and healthy relationship. And if you find out early that they don't, you can save yourself some heartache. Many people might disagree on this one, but I believe if you want a lasting relationship without one or both of you constantly having to censor, alter their views to avoid arguing, you need to have a similar core to begin with. This got longer than I intended for it, and I don't think anyone will read it anyway, so I love you, my beautiful wife, and refill the damn toilet paper every now and then, please. Story 15. Well, I've been on quite a few first and second dates in the last 3 years. Some were a ton of fun, and some really sucked. The ones that ended up going anywhere had most of these in common. On time, conversation flows easily. She asks questions and contributes. If we're having fun, going to a second location is a good sign. At the end of the date, if she leans in for a kiss or even asks you to her place. She's got to be polite to the staff, and if I pay for the date, being thanked is nice. Also, being straightforward about her dating goals from the start. Story 16. I bought opera tickets once for me and a lady because we were both into that. It's very late when we're done, so I offer, and she accepts, a lunch date so we can talk about it. The date went fine, and then she paid for it. I was a bit surprised. I'm of the belief that unless arrangements are made beforehand, payment is done by the one who offers the date, her. You paid for the opera tickets, and I had a great time then and now. I'm not about to be greedy. Story 17. I was sick with something. A lot of pollen where I'm from. We'd barely been talking a week on a dating website, and I had mentioned my sore throat and runny nose. She asked me for my address. Me being a dude thought nothing of it and figured it was for the date coming up. I didn't have a car, so she'd figured out how to pick me up as she didn't have one either. 2 hours later, I get a knock on the front door. A bag of assorted cough drops, tissues, cough medicine, just everything you could think of. Hot chocolate included. We had our first date the next day, and boy was I sappy. Story 18. An ultimate green flag is that the conversation flows naturally between both sides. I remember the first date, though we did not call it date to avoid it being labeled, it was rather a meetup. So I met on Tinder. We met up at a public coffee place and the talk was just endless, covering a lot of topics. When we realized that it's already getting dark, we still wanted to continue talking, and it was a 3-hour conversation already. By the time we both got to our homes, it was 11 p.m., and I could not believe that such a thing happened. Story 19. My wife was 30, 40 minutes late to our first date, and the first time we had ever met. She was very apologetic, and once she settled down from feeling bad bad about being late. She asked me questions no other gal ever had. Nothing crazy, but just questions genuinely interested in me. She's been the same sweet angel every day since then too, and she's also given me 2 amazing daughters. Hard to explain, but her green flags are everywhere, aside from her punctuality. Story 20. I am horrible at reading people. Many years ago, I learned a little trick. You invite someone to do something in the future, but you leave out an obvious detail. If they ask for the details, they probably are actually interested. Example, a group of us are going bowling next Thursday after work. Would you like to come? If she says yes, but doesn't ask what time exactly or which bowling alley she isn't coming. Story 21. I met my wife on Tinder. We talked for a while and really hit it off and eventually planned to meet at her place to hook up. When I got there, we ended up sitting on her couch and just talk and talk and talk. This was the first time meeting in person, and our planned hookup had instead turned into nearly 4 hours of wonderful conversation. Been together 5 years, married her back in September. Easily the best non-hookup I ever had. Story 22. Wasn't a first date, but a hookup at a party. I was chatting to her and her friends when she asked if she could kiss me. It was so odd, but she was super cute about it. I agreed, but I think it should be private. She asked what room was mine as the party was at our hotel at the time. We ran up and met in the room. When in the room, I started joking about how random this was, and my quirky personality kind of slipped out. She just mirrored my energy. Every quirk, joke, stupid slip-up, and action just worked with her. It was like we have always known each other. A 9 p.m. quickly turned into 5 a.m. I knew this was something special, and I could tell she felt the same. We moved in together within 3 months and have been side by side for 16 years. Story 23. Met a woman for a first date at a local mom and pop restaurant serving Polish food. We both get the pierogi variety plate. I can't eat beef, and she can't eat pork. We had discussed this before meeting, so I gave her my beef pierogi, and she gave me her pork ones. Now that's already pretty fucking cute, right? At one point, as we're both talking and laughing, I start having an asthma attack. It takes me a minute to find my inhaler, take a puff, and start to come back from it. And just as my breathing comes back to normal, she says, "So I took your breath away, huh?" I laughed so hard, I needed to hit the inhaler again. Story 24. Putting away distractions and actually focusing on what's going on. Very few and far between. Had a date with this girl I was into, and every 30 seconds she checked her phone because her roommate's messages were so much more important. Bruh, if you just don't want to be there, leave and stop wasting my time and money. Dinner was like $110 and I covered it stupidly enough. Story 25. Does your dog or cat like them? Animals see things we don't. I got the dog in the divorce. Years later, I went on a date with someone who ended up coming back to mine, and we stayed up and talked until 3 or 4 a.m. I was sleeping in a hammock at the time and didn't own a bed, and also wasn't looking for a hookup, so my date slept on the couch. When I came out to the living room in the morning, my dog was asleep on the guy's legs. Doggo had never come to bed, just stayed out in the living room with my date. We celebrated 5 years this past January. We lost the dog a few years in, but my cat sleeps on my partner nearly every single night. Story 26. Open body language. This shows if that they are actually interested in you and genuinely like you. If their body is pointed towards you and their arms aren't crossed, but also pointing in your direction, it shows she is comfortable with being around you and probably likes you. If they cross their arms and their body isn't pointed towards you, and if you are sitting beside them on a bench on your first date and she puts her leg up on whatever side you are sitting on, she doesn't feel comfortable with you yet and probably doesn't like you. Yeah. A leg up happened to me, folks. Story 27. She is present. She doesn't dress like a teenager. Jeans and a t-shirt are 100% okay with me, but wearing capris with a half tucked in button up, no belt, and too many buttons undone is just a hard pass. I don't even know how that's a style these days. The conversation is enjoyable. Don't try to introduce a power dynamic to the conversation. We're just two people getting to know each other over some drinks. When I say power dynamic here, there are a lot of people who get off by feeling the power of controlling the conversation. And in many ways, it comes across as belittling or an insubtle communication that they feel like they're superior. Those are huge red flags to me as it communicates that they are manipulative and controlling. She engages in innocent physical touch. If a guy initiates this, it can often be read wrong. But if a woman does this and she does it subtly, then it's a great way of communicating without anyone putting themselves out there. Basically, this could be like touching feet, legs under the table. She puts her hand on his forearm when the conversation is good, etc. She's telling him she's interested in a way that men should understand. If a guy doesn't like her, he won't be offended by this, however. If a guy did this and the woman didn't like him then, instantly he's a creeper. So yeah, men, if you want to try this, be careful, as women are just better at it.